How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the TheBlueShifting. Welcome back to War and ReWrite. So we're in this moon reflection area or whatever it is, and we're trying to protect Kagari, who apparently might be getting close to finding an answer. And if there is an answer, like she's gonna find it soon. But old lady Sakura, essentially like the holy woman of Gaia before Akane. Good grief, before Akane, is apparently waging a interdimensional war. At least one version of her in one of the timelines has decided that she's got to go to the source and has figured out where the source is. So now we're here defending it, and we got the entire Occult Research Society on our backs, or with us having our backs, and they're just being awesome. It was really cool and emotional and very fun because I mentioned it last time, but even though I played through the other routes and stuff, it still was really just emotional to see them here. Especially for some of them, like Kotarou, whom, besides her own route, she appeared very infrequently in the other routes, especially because the parts of the story where she's most often around, you fast forward through. And that's the case with all the other characters as well, but still, it was really nice to have everyone back together. So, we're essentially waging a war against this Sakura, and I wonder if it's just one or maybe multiple Sakura across different dimensional spaces. It can be really hard to know. When you're dealing with an infinite possibility space, numbers stop meaning very much, and like there's really not much of a limiting factor going on. So yeah, we'll have to see how it goes, but we're essentially all kitted out, ready to go. We're fighting, and we're going to see how we do at defending Kagari and see if there's any potential saving that can be done. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Alright, what are we up to, man? One down. I slay one Dionysius. Facing it head-on, using every ounce of my power, I was able to barely take it down. Shoot, thought I was a goner there. I'm exhausted. Here in this world, recovery is only skin deep. While wounds may heal, any depleted life force won't return. I don't need to worry about physical damage such as losing blood, but losing life force is another matter. Lose it all, I'll be gone for good. Good. Kotane's voice resounds from the scout bird. I took down one. Shizuru and Lucia probably also defeated each. Who dealt with the fourth one, Prez? She is good. You're kidding. She's beyond impressive. I set off back to the hill. Hey, it's okay. Honestly, we'd rather have too many people than not enough. They were strong as heck. Shizuru and Lucia looked nonchalant. You're really something. I bet it did. She swings her arms, mimicking mowing down her enemies. Just like, slice, slice, slice.
なんだしずる、仲間のための戦いだからだろ。なるほど。
Aww. She nods comprehendingly. The battle Shizuru fought must have always been veiled in shadow. She simply wielded her power against those who opposed her. This is probably the first time she's ever fought for another person.
ご苦労だったわ、みんな。
Akane also returns unharmed.
ごめんなさい。支援しようとしたけど、付け入る隙がなくて。
You can leave the fighting to us. But man, they were strong. I'm really glad you're all okay.
しかし、そうそうお目にかかることのないレベルの魔物だった。鹿島さくらは大量の化石標本を買い集めていたから、それを利用してるのね。
That would make sense. Fossils make really convenient cores for familiars. Bet that cost her a pretty penny.
そんなのがゾロゾロ出てくるの？やれる。すごい自信ですね。
Yeah.
これが本物だったら、もっといけるはず。
Hey, what? Oh, yeah, that's true. She claps heavyweight Sakuya on the shoulder. That's true. If he were actually Sakuya, we would be probably just fine. I really did my best, but after testing him out with a real fight, it seems they're not impressed with my handiwork. She shouldn't be able to control familiars in the hundreds, but we can't be certain.
拠点を変えるわけにはいかないの？
Kagari has to stay here, so no can do.
どこに逃げても一緒かも。ここじゃ。そうね。
Now, how about some tea?
さくやじゃないけど、さくや？
With movements nimble for his burly frame, Sakuya politely bows his head before setting about making tea.
茶器は終わり?
Sakuya flaps his hands before crossing his arms over his chest and sticking his hands under his armpits. Then, as if by magic, he produces two teacups.
どこから出しましたか今?
Yeah, I kind of want to know for, you know, I doubt there are germs here, but still.
見事ね。ああ、洗練されたマジックのテクニックだ。ココアがいい。おコーヒーくだち。
Oh, no, just making it difficult. Sakuya prepares drinks for 6.
だから、お茶に指入ってるんですけど。というかなぜ誰も気にしないんです
I know, right? Let's make some toast. Make a toast to the new Occult Research Society's first victory. Oh, hang on. Kagari doesn't have anything. Chihaya, could you go make something for her?
6人分ちゃんとありますよ。
That's not enough. We need 7. Everyone exchanges awkward glances.
単刀直入に言うが、見えないんだ。
Oh, even here. What?
大きな力がわだかまっているのは感じるけど、
That's interesting.
姿は見えないんだよ。
I really thought here it would be see, especially because in different times most of them have been able to see her at some point. Like at least Kotarou was able to view the key. Akane clearly could view the key, at least in certain scenarios. Or maybe they didn't see her like we did though. Maybe they just sensed her presence and that was enough. But they usually were able to grab her, so I imagine they could. And I'm pretty sure Chihaya could see her too, but she also wasn't very much a part of that storyline. So maybe not. Yeah, okay, it makes sense. But still, even here, I thought this realm was like her safe space and her defenses wouldn't be up like that.
小太郎が何者かとつながっていることもわかるけど、姿は見えない。
So Kagari's invisible. Is her relationship to humans the same here too then? Even here, Kagari is isolated. Solitude is in her essence. I'm so thoughtless.
ご用意しますね。
Thanks. Perhaps I was enjoying myself too much. How many times have we been attacked? We successfully repelled each attempt. Even Kashimi Sakura didn't expect an organized resistance. We're able to fight against them with far less effort than before. I wonder if she's running out of resources. Our side doesn't take many losses. Just a few of Yoshino's gang. We're all illusions anyway, so there's no cause to mourn. But the enemy must know our formation and strategy by now. Things are only getting harder. Kagari's exhaustion is plain to see. Oh my gosh, yeah, look at that. She looks like she's going to collapse, and she's not human. She's reached the final stage of her research. Her fingers flutter over the tips of the branches, tinkering with them. She's checking to see whether each and every single one of these aborted possibilities connects to the future. She continues on, ignoring the short branches. To pursue those shorter branches would require her to retrace them to some crucial point and redo them from there. In other words, those branches are worlds that fell to ruin. These branches are far more truncated than their worlds that slowly taper to an end. Mr. Eska, Mr. Nishikojo, Miss Nishikojo, Shimako. I'm saying all the names wrong, I'm sorry. I think I must be I'm just struggling for some reason today. Maybe that's why I couldn't summon them here despite our strong connection.
興味深い理論ね、これ。
Akane walks out from between the trees.
私には鍵は見えないけど、ここに組み上がっているものはわかるわ。
Interesting that you can figure that out. That's impressive in itself. Perhaps she has an advantage as the leader of Gaia? Akane reaches out, her hand hovering exactly over where the theory rests.
これは命と世界のたどった道筋ね。力強い流れ。でも最後には弱々しく砕けている。
Exactly. While I see a theory as a tree, Akane seems to perceive it as a vague flow of energy. Doesn't it hurt your head to try and read it? If it wipes you out, you won't regenerate.
こういうことには慣れているつもりよ。
Really?
魔を生み出す技に似ているのね。こちらの方がずっと高度だけれど。
After studying it for a while, she shakes her head.
ダメ。とても理解できそうにないわ。これを見る限り、滅びは不可避に思えるわね。
Right. That's not what the planet wants, but she can't find a way to save it.
万能の力にも限度はあるのね。
The Aurora isn't all-powerful, and it's not omnipotent. Omnipotent means unlimited power. That's clearly not the case. The Earth has a harsh planet, unsuited for hosting life. Life can just barely survive due to the omnipotent power adjusting the environment. Even with the help of such a miracle, survival is all it can manage.
この辺りはどういう記述なのかしら。
It's an area I'm familiar with, so I'm able to explain.
資源がなくなるからこういうことが起こると。
That's right.
資源の消費を抑えればいいの？
You would think so, except the creation of sentient life irrevocably results in the resources being expended. Civilization can't advance without consuming resources. And by the time people start noticing the damage and thinking about the environment, it's already too late. Oh, that hurts to hear.
人間って愚かね。
Yes. Don't say it with a laugh.
愚かな人間ってフレーズが好きよ。
This is why people say you talk like a final boss from a video game.
誰がそんな陰口を？
Me, but that's okay. Everyone at school. She chews on the thumbnail, muttering to herself. Uh-oh, better change the subject. The best option is probably just to destroy civilization every time it begins to flourish. From a human perspective, that would make us something like gods of destruction.
私たち以上の極悪人ね。
But I wonder whether things would go better if we exerted control from an earlier stage. For example, if we could fix the population limit at around 1 billion and advance civilization without increasing the number of people.
大陸の数を減らしてみたら？
Huh?
大陸が分かれていることも国家乱立の一因なわけだから、一つの超大陸にしてしまうのよ。
I mean, I don't know if Pangea would be any like. I mean, look at the history of Europe. It's one of the smallest continents, and yet it had some of the most tumultuous years of just utter devastation, even into the modern era.
だいぶ違うんじゃなくて？
I wonder if it's possible. An omnipotent power should be able to manage it. Corralling human life into one huge country, that could control the consumption of resources. Then the key would never originate, destruction would be postponed, and life would continue on. I wonder if it'd work.
理論上でシミュレートしてみればいいじゃない。
Okay, let me make a copy. Stretching out a drop of Aurora, I create a piece of paper. Then I duplicate the relevant section from the theory of life. After arranging the layout, I spread it out between me and Akane. Now we're able to visualize it and check the numbers. Interesting. That's cool that he can actually copy it. It's almost like looking at a code for a massive algorithm, which actually that's essentially what this is. It's a biologically magical algorithm, and he's copying just a segment of it and essentially continuing the branch off in a theoretical branch, but in a very small kind of consumable form. That's really cool. It's like some kind of tabletop game board.
初期宇宙については手が出ないから原始地球からスタートね。
What should we alter first?
最初のプレイは適当にやってみればいいのよ。とりあえず最初の大事件は月ね。
Yep, is a interstellar object that was vying for our same orbital space and inevitably collided with our planet. The initial collision planet was estimated to be about the size of Mars. Hit the planet, obliterated it. So it probably had a crust at the time, but the resulting forces were so intense that it likely turned the Earth into a giant glob of molten rock. Like, got so intensely hot at that time, it probably was just a sphere of liquid lava. And the other planetoid also became liquid spread in a disk around us, which then coalesced into a large sphere. And the reason why this model makes a lot of sense is because it would easily have a great explanation for why the moon rocks and earth rocks have exact same signatures, like they're made of the same material and have seemingly come from the same source, and why the moon rotates at the same speed it orbits, which is why we always see the same side of the moon facing Earth. Because most of the moons are rocks that are caught in the orbit of a planet, but then they rotate and they have their own orbital path, and they have their own like a lot of things. Like our moon, I believe, is the only moon that has an orbital path like ours does, where the same side always faces us. I think that's unique to Earth, at least in our neighborhood. I'm sure in other places in the galaxy and universe it probably happens many times, but we usually frame our reference here. A video starts to play showing the formation of the Earth 4.6 billion years ago. The fledgling solar system. Debris is drawn towards the sun, where it falls into orbit. The debris collides again and again, gradually forming large masses of rock. These protoplanets further coalesce to form the Earth. It's awe-inspiring to watch.
荒い動画ね。イライラするわ。
If you want next generation tech skills, you're looking at the wrong person. The impact of the protoplanets keeps the Earth in a constant state of extreme heat. Metals melt and condense, sinking to the middle to form the core. The surface is a sea of magma, but eventually it cools to form a crust. There's still no moon in the sky. Should we start from here?
原始地球の時、すでに万能の力は宿っていたのね。
It technically was there at the beginning of everything. Yeah. Looking at the parameters, it seems to be the case. That in itself isn't surprising. As the universe expands, life will be diffused outward from the center.
月を地球にぶつけるのよ。ぶつけ方でだいぶ運命が変わってくるはず。
Okay, go ahead and use the touch controls to guide the moon into the Earth.
お手本はこうよ。
As though on an air hockey table, Akane slams the moon with perfect form. Swoosh. The moon veers off track and flies off into the beyond. You have the worst aim.
球技が苦手なだけよ。
Also, gravity trajectories aren't as predictable as we like to think because we're so used to gravity, we kind of make unnatural assumptions about the way force would be exerted. So for instance, the moon is orbiting the Earth, she probably tried to punch it towards the planet, which ended up just flinging it away. If you actually wanted to make the moon crash into the planet, you'd want to direct force against its own orbit. So if there's a sphere already orbiting around it or nearby, you slow it down, and then it'll collapse into the gravity well.
それに、タッチパネルも増えてね。マウス操作ならもっとエイムできたわ。
She reels off a bunch of excuses. Well, the lack of a moon has certainly changed up the environment. Without the moon's gravity, there are no tides, the Earth rotates at an incredibly fast rate. Ceaseless winds ravage the surface. We skip forward 100 million years just to check. Without a moon, the Earth cannot bear life. 1 billion years on, there's finally microbes at the bottom of the oceans. But they quickly stagnate. The Earth's rotation and its tides stirred up the environment in just the right way. Without them, everything is delayed. It takes another 2 billion years for plants to cover the surface. For some reason, the Earth's magnetic pull is extreme. The winds still haven't ceased. Due to this, their foliage and carpet around the ground is all moss and creepers. Oh, by the way, so we're gonna be apparently nerding out because I'm loving this. So he says here, for some reason, the Earth's magnetic pull is extreme. Well, that's because it's rotating so fast. Because if you've ever known or learned anything about electromagnets, essentially what makes generators or even your vacuum takes power and uses a electromagnet system to turn that power into rotational energy. And then most generators take rotating fans or steam belts that are rotating, and they turn that into electricity through electromagnets. Our planet makes a magnetic field that protects us from a lot of radiation and solar wind, and that magnetic field is generated because we have an iron core and a surface that rotates around it. As the planet rotates, it generates that magnetic field. So if you have a much faster rotation, it's going to generate a much more powerful electromagnetic field. On top of this, the planet has limited ability to recover from any upsets to its equilibrium. Algae blooms across the oceans, emitting huge amounts of oxygen. The oxygen concentration in the air spikes. And what does that mean? Poison. It supports combustion more readily. That too. Fire rages across the surface. It's more impressive than any blockbuster. The Earth is devastated.
私のせいじゃないわ。
Yes, it is.
ゲーム。
Suzudu and the others come to see what we're up to.
頼まれてたコーヒー豆とキャンプセット買ってきたわ。
Yeah. Thanks. You paid for them?
お金はカウンターに置いてきたから。
Well, aren't you honorable?
これはゲーム版なのか？
地球で進化46億年の旅。面白そうですね。
I love how inadvertently, because remember that we're in a cognitive space, the way we view things, it's twisting the way it appears. Nope. Gosh darn it, game.
月を地球にうまくぶつけて生命を誕生させるゲームよ。
I wouldn't call it a game exactly, but I don't want to spoil the mood. It reminds me of when we'd hang out at the club. Want to give it a try, Suzudu? Here's the thing though, it is a game. It's a simulation, which is what most games are. But if a simulation could actually lead to a viable potential future, that's great. Cool. I mean, it's really kind of scary to say, but genuinely, modern warfare is quickly becoming a video game. Remote drones, robotics, they're all becoming more and more relevant to battlefields. Remember, they one of the things that they realized fairly quickly was you get a bunch of gamers, give them a drone, they're going to be able to not only do well, but they're likely to be able to pick up a controller and have an immediate, almost like natural control over a real life piece of military tech. Like, that's not even like making that up. That's a very legitimate thing. So yeah, no, video games inadvertently are going to become probably the backbone foundation of future warfare. So yeah, make it a game. Also, I'm happy we have the happy music back. She skips over to me. Aww, she always is into games and manga and stuff like that.
ぶつける
With a huge swing of her arm, she throws the sphere. Her fastball, or rather her fast moon, hurtles towards the Earth and crashes into it with incredible force. I imagine that's going to disrupt its orbit. The Earth is smashed to smithereens. Game over. Whoa, what the heck was that?
撃破成功
She flashes me a thumbs up. The aim of the game isn't to destroy the world.
しかしぶつけるゲームだと
Yeah, hit it gently, like a loving smack across the face. Don't believe everything a wicked woman says.
ずいぶんね
Okay, let's set the moon on its default path. I make the moon, or rather its constitutional elements, crash into the Earth as it did in real life. The perfect impact causes the two to combine, sending the countless fragments whirling outward. As they revolve around the Earth, these fragments come together to form the moon as we know it. That's better.
ここからどうなる
If we leave things be, we should see life appear. Even as I'm speaking, the parameters for creation of life are springing up. Look, there's bacteria and archaea.
うーん
文字が読めないな訳してくれないか
読めますよ
Interesting.
魔物使いは読みやすいのよね
It's operating on similar levels.
私も読める
Yeah.
大陸の形がどんどん変わっていく
The girls crowd around the board like kids at an aquarium. Time advances. Bacteria thrive. Then, Eurocrotes. Gosh, I know this word. Eurocrotes arrive. That's like the complex cells, like we know. Like we're made up of these types of cells essentially, but it's talking about single cellular versions of them, like amoeba. Fast forward, and we're at the era where multicellular organisms arise. The Cambrian explosion is well known as the impetus for accelerating the diversification of life. Oh, yeah. So, eukaryotes. A good example, so bacteria are kind of like a single shell that's contained, it's got its DNA or RNA inside it, and it's there. Eukaryotes are essentially, you can think of them as a colonization of multiple bacteria that then form a barrier around themselves and become an isolated, like self-sufficient helping colony, which makes them a lot more complex, which is what our genetics are. Like a bacteria is essentially like an engine with like the code to run it inside it, just floating around. We have things like a nucleus, ribosomes, and all the other parts of a cell. Each of the parts of our cells that make it function were likely previously bacteria that were self-contained that could do everything, but they specialized at a specific thing. And then when they were brought in together and kind of adopted by a larger cell, they specialized and specialized to now they are completely dependent on the entire cell working in harmony to function. If you took out a ribosome, it wouldn't be able to live on its own. But keep it inside a cell and it will keep producing power and energy and making everything work. That's what's really cool about eukaryotes, is the fact that they are essentially taking multiple specialized bacteria and putting them together, almost like building like a community. And then that grew into more complex life because they became so efficient and so capable of defending themselves that they started being able to grow and multiply and become more and more complex and be able to do things on the macro scale, similar to what they did in the micro scale. If you think about our organs, each of our organs are like animals, essentially, but they have a function and a specific role that they can't do independently of our body, but our body requires them. So it's essentially the same thing that a eukaryote is, but on a grander scale. And then you can even think of civilization as being something very similar. Like, I can't go out and sew my own clothing, build my own car. I need specialists that can do that, but then I contribute in my own way, and I do things that other people can't do, and collectively we make something greater than the whole. It's essentially the same pattern. Life just goes over and over and over again. In this era, living organisms suddenly become much more complex.
海中に魔物が無数に生まれているな
They're not monsters, they're real creatures. To be fair, they're so different from modern-day biota that they look like fantastical monsters. Now then, let's see if we can make a few revisions here.
小太郎この魔物は何だ
That's the strongest monster of its age, the Anomalacaris.
魔物で認めた。エビみたいだね。
あまりうまそうではないが。ロブスターも大きいものは大味だったりするのよね。
Yeah.
食べたことがない。お金は富豪だ。
Miss Moneybags. You're as rich as she is. I know how much money you have stashed away.
50センチくらいありますね、これ。よく見たら、キリマンジャロに似てます。
Oh yeah, I imagine Kilimanjaro might have been based on them. Yeah. Kilimanjaro was probably created from the fossilized remains of these creatures. You wouldn't stand a chance against one of these things if it got a hold of you in the ocean. What's the matter? Don't you like it?
トゲトゲしくて可愛くない。カブトガニにしよう。
Oh, I do love horseshoe crabs. Shizuru molds some data like a piece of clay before tossing it carelessly into the Cambrian era. All at once, masses of giant 3-meter-long creatures appear across the ancient ocean floor. Hey, you didn't consider the ecosystem at all, did you? They're way too big.
わ、カブトガニだよ。
角があるけど。
Horseshoe crabs were never this big.
名付けて、ヘラクレスオオカブトガニ。
Just like a Hercules beetle, huh?
可愛い、強い、そして優しい。
It's cute, strong, and gentle.
なかなか強そうではあるな。
こないだ戦った魔物と同じくらいの強さだ。
That's way too OP. You do realize the living creatures the size require a heck of a lot of food to fuel it, right?
Huh?
So if you suddenly throw them in the mix, the ferocious Hercules horseshoe crabs quickly render the Amelocaris extinct. In fact, they consume every other living organism around. In just 20 years. No! In the end, the Hercules horseshoe crabs turn on each other, arriving at a gruesome end of cannibalism.
あの優しかったカブトたちが。生まれた当初から優しさのかけらも見えませんでしたけどね。
Yeah, no, they're vicious.
ならば、小さくして数を増やしてみれば。
This time, crowds of mini horseshoe crabs appear, skittering all over the seabed. But again, the crabs are aggressive, work together in groups to prey upon the remaining Hercules horseshoe crabs. In the end, the mini horseshoe crabs turn on each other, arriving at the gruesome end of cannibalism. Told you, the aim of the game is to destroy everything. I love this, like, it's trying to highlight, especially for us, the reader, if we aren't versed in the sciences, to be like, life and the ecosystem is very complicated, and just trying to change something often is going to lead to an imbalance. Apparently, Shizuru sucks at simulation games. Dang it, let's do this over. With some effort, I get us back to the rails of history.
ゴキブリとかいらないですよね。
Around 300 million years ago, the cockroaches started to appear. Chihaya suddenly starts fiddling with the data. The Earth is overtaken by merciless ice age. No, don't just change things without thinking them through.
温めなきゃだよ。
No, Kotarou messes with the data. She forces the plants to move, forming a gigantic volcano 20 kilometers tall, which erupts spectacularly. The result is a disaster that severely alters the climate of the entire planet. Stop, please! No more of this insanity. You might think a volcanic eruption will heat things up, but the ash will block the sun, causing everything to cool.
そうだったんだ。
Kotarou! Ah, this poor planet. It's gonna be covered in ice.
なら、溶かしましょう。
For some reason, acid rain starts to fall. What did you do now? No living thing can survive in an environment she's created? Game over. Come back to me when you've read an encyclopedia of evolutionary history and are ready to take this stuff seriously.
興味なし子。毛虫とかもいない世界だと、森の散歩が楽しくなるんですけど。
Chihaya, you didn't learn?
クラゲも滅ぼそう。
Why? Jellyfish are cool.
可愛い生物満載の星に。
This is the cute critters means carnivorous predators. Oh no. Oh, ooh no. You've got to be kidding me. They all fall into the chaotic alignment, no doubt about that. What is it now?
適当にいじっていたら、なんだか人類が生まれてしまった。
How? What? For real? This is the result I wanted. Checking the time period, I see that we're in the Mesozoic era. What the heck? But it's 20 million years early. How did he manage that?
無茶が重なって、たまたまそうなったようね。
Well, if you understand the history, it might work. But the problem we're going to have here is you're going to have a civilization that's going to grow and advance, but there's not going to be any oil reserves because the oil hasn't had a chance to be made yet.
うん。毛むくじゃらだけど立って歩いてる。道具も持ってる。恐竜もいる。
The ancient hairy people from groups that attacked the dinosaurs.
恐竜を飼っているようだな。
I can't believe it. How did the chain of random events lead to this? I guess it's a good reminder. You never really know when something's going to give you lemonade rather than lemons. Humanity advances. Settlements urbanize, rituals and rites become more complex, their habitats expand. By the end of the Cretaceous period, dinosaurs are almost extinct due to overhunting.
確かこの時代って隕石降ってくるんじゃないです？
Yeah, usually that's what would wipe out the dinosaurs, at least as far as we can tell. Let's cancel it. The planet's already dealt with one sudden ice age. No matter what we try, the dinosaurs are always wiped out by overhunting. At the same time, humanity flourishes. Unlike the human beings we know, these ones have long, luxurious manes. I guess they're not exactly primates, although they are still mammals.
駆除しちゃう？
No, absolutely not! That's sentient life right there. That's a precious thing. Let's give them some support. During this era, the world consists of just one supercontinent known as Pangaea. But we're now approaching the time where it'll break apart due to the movement of tectonic plates. Then it'll split into continents, so it'll become known as Eurasia and Americas. Japan too. Using my Aurora, I put a stop to this breakage. It takes a lot of energy, but perhaps this will deter the world from dividing itself into nation states. Let's see. Mankind develops within a single supercontinent. They progress from primitive battles to wars waged with weapons. Within all this, there occurs a technological revolution. The genesis of magic.
これは
Yeah, what the fetch? People begin to develop techniques that can only describe as magic. Ways of turning the body into something monstrous. Means of imbuing weapons with a soul. Oh gosh! Methods of manipulating large animals.
魔物使いだ。
They all went summoners. They've accessed the Aurora. I suppose that's one superstition. The more superstitious you are, the more likely you are to connect with an invisible miracle.
魔物使いにこんなことができたなんて。
似たようなことしてたじゃないか。
Not on this scale.
そうですけど。
Thinking about it, controlling the power of familiars like Chihaya and Mido is a magical technique. And Takasago ultimately did the same, something similar. Remember that this is a simulation, never actually happened.
けれど、あり得たのでしょうね。
I thought Gil and Panny were irregular familiars, but I guess there was a particular method to how they were made.
そういえば、あの二人も作ればよかったんじゃないです？
Aw, that would have been cool. No, I don't think so. I feel like the act of making them would only bring sadness. Anyway, let's keep going. Magical civilization thrives. A period of war dawns. Sudden small nations grapple for ascendancy, countless magical systems are devised. The nations lacking in magic are simply wiped out. Finally, several large nations emerge from the turmoil. They subjugate the surrounding areas until only one remains. This signals the birth of a great empire. The stability this creates allows civilization to advance further. Magic is funneled into farming and into population explodes. Internal conflict occasionally breaks out across the empire. Independent nations splinter off and attempt to extend their reach across the continent. I implement various means to prevent them. So he's going for the autocracy, like, dominion route. I erase natural disasters, plagues, and any groups that rebel against its empire. Controlling the population is horribly difficult. If I intervene excessively, it'll collapse like a rock gathering speed on a hill. If I'm too lax, the population balloons in an instant. Everyone's always wanting to make a new country. Why are they so intent on breaking up the nation? People are disgustingly keen to spread their seed. I let my concentration lapse for even a moment, they'll consume the earth in an instant. 2,000 years go by. Ultimately, I'm unable to stave off the breakdown of the great empire. It splits into 3 distinct nations, which wage war until stability is finally regained just before complete collapse. At last, the 3 nations are enmeshed in an economic network and bound by international accords, making war a worthless pursuit.
やったね。
This is where the real challenge starts. Under my holy governance alone, will the inferior human race be led to 1,000-day, 10,000-year dominion?
また悪い癖が出てるな。
Yeah, I know, right?
また小太郎が変になっちゃいましたね。
Yeah, the bit, what do you call it, god complex? Strange? I think not. Merely have ascended to my seat amongst the gods.
小鳥、やっておしまい。
生まれ故郷の群馬県。
Yes! Regression. Feels so nice. I regress backward mentally. Remember, her punches are healing punches. Thanks. Guess I got a bit mad with power there.
いつものこと。
Okay, let's keep calmly controlling civilization and gather the data. In the brief time my attention was elsewhere, the magical civilization collapsed. It's completely gone. What?
何が起こった？いきなり滅びたが。巻き戻して。
On it. Their extinction was unnaturally sudden. Entire civilization gone in the blink of an eye with 0 prior warning? We know what that means.
いた。
Kotori's pointing at a single girl. She doesn't look any different to any other human. However, checking the numerical data reveals her deviation. A body made from a pile of dirt and a miracle.
鍵ね。驚いたな。
This key takes a different form than Kagari, but she is of the very same nature. I decide to trace the key's movements. She comes straight from the land, literally created from dirt. Takes the same form as the species it's surveying.
この人たちが魔法を使いすぎたから？
その可能性は高いな。
でも帝国の力は弱まってた。
Maybe she destroyed them because they showed no sign of developing any further? It wouldn't make sense except for the fact that there's still plenty of Aurora remaining.
この路線ではいずれ使い果たすのは目に見えていた。彼らは発展を放棄していたから。
Kotarou, do you remember anything about Kagari?
良い記憶を探してるって言い伝えくらいかな。
Interesting. Happy memories, huh? What are happy memories to a planet? Perhaps we've been overlooking or failing to recognize them. I feel like the key makes her judgments from some innate instinct. Destruction isn't brought about based on superficial measurements of how much the population values nature or the degree of the environmental destruction. She can perceive when a population is given up. Nothing can blow the wool over her eyes. How did it happen for us? Weren't there times when it seemed like everything would work out? Yet inevitably, it always ended in destruction.
滅びに瀕した際に、それに抗うプロジェクトはいくつも立てられていたな。
ノアプロジェクト、エンジェルズラダープロジェクト、ジオメトリックプロジェクト、テラフォーミングプロジェクト、コロニープロジェクト、スペースシップヤマトプロジェクト。
I think you're just talking about anime now. Wow, that last one sounds impressive. Humanity even turned to the stars to try and avert their demise.
すべてが途中で破綻するか、その前に資源が枯渇。で、最後は鍵に滅ぼされておしまいみたい。
Oh. Does that mean it has nothing to do with the advancement of civilization or science? But from what Kotarou said, it sounds like the key waits for that failure and exhaustion of resources. Is there any hint to be found in the phrase happy memories? Well, whose memories, really? Like, is it people? Because people have a mix of happy and sad. What memories are we looking for? Who's happy's memories? I tried to think. Not enough. Not enough what? Time. There isn't enough time. I call up memories from further back. My time with Akane. My time with Shizuru. My time with Lucia. My time with Chihaya. Kotarou. That's really weird. It's like the order I did it backwards. Is it like reading the memory of the game or what? Because that's kind of how it all happened. Weird. My time with Kotarou. Huh? I found a blank spot. A blank spot of several years. Interesting. Oh, what? What's that? That's freaking crazy. What? What is that? Hold up. Kotarou and I were childhood friends. I was injured while helping a girl in the forest. That's when it happened. I was almost killed by Kagari. Kotarou used her druid powers to save me. Then I was in the hospital. I was in a coma. For years. The girl I helped back then was... What the fetch? That's right. That was Akane. I remember making that connection too. But it was like really vague and kind of almost dismissed. Then Kotarou saved me. How old was I? Why is it only those two who appear as kids? It's a fake memory. What? But how can I tell which memories only exist to conveniently explain things away? I recall more memories. Mr. Imamiya. Miss Nishikyojo. And you're a high school student. You seem to be handling your whole school thing just fine. I remember their words. Why do I have memories of once being the same age as them? I knew Mr. Imamiya. And he knew me. I feel like that explains a lot of inconsistencies. My body stopped aging. Of course it did. I was half familiar. That's why I was still a high school student. No, I was never a real student. What the fetch is happening? I was saved. My mind was still fuzzy after awakening from my deep slumber. In my first year and at the beginning of my second year too. It was like my mind had come to a standstill and my classmates, they helped me. There's a blank space inside me. An unavoidable period of time. The void is inevitable. I have no memories of avoiding it. Like when Chihaya's village was attacked. Like when Lucia was Brenda's lab rat. Like when Shizuru erased her parents' memories. I don't feel regret. Although for a brief moment I do wonder whether I should lament the loss of time. After all, every memory it led to eventually comes to a dead end. Was it too late for me to contribute anything to the world? What would happen if that piece was never missing? Am I such an impressive being? Weren't there people far greater power than mine? But if there were, then no. There's no time for that now. I shouldn't be letting my thoughts wander down that path. While I was thinking, the world has dissolved back into the primordial soup stage. The atmosphere brims with miracles. Evolution begins anew.
すごい。わずか年単位で。
生命誕生のために星はかなりの量の活力を失うんだな。
We're just gonna breeze past that. What the fetch? That seems crazy important. He didn't age. I want to look at that again. I'll look at that again. Oh. Blank space. My mind came to a standstill. Classmates helped me. I remember that. In the first year, at the beginning of my second year, mine came to a standstill. I knew Mr. Imamiya. He knew me. My body stopped aging. Of course it did. I was half familiar. That's why I was still a high school student. No, I was never a real student. I was saved. Okay. So if he stopped aging, does that imply that he was high school age when he interacted with Akane, when he tried to save Akane and was saved by Kotori? But that doesn't make sense. Why would Kotori treat us like she does if she knew that? Like, it's weird. Maybe I'm misinterpreting what it's saying here. And that's okay if I am. I'm trying to piece together like some of these things, like an unavoidable period of time that's a blank space. It's unavoidable like Chihaya, Lucia, Shizuru, Kotaru. And he doesn't regret what happened. Interesting. Okay. I'm gonna chew on that for a little while. Life explodes into existence. In just a few hundred years, the first multicellular organisms emerge. A few thousand years later, and the seas are filled with tens of thousands of species. Among them is the Hercules horseshoe crab. What's going on? That was supposed to be a silly creature Suzuru slapped together as a joke.
あなた、また何かした？
もういじってない。
Weird. She seems to be slightly traumatized by the gruesome scene her last attempt ended in.
自然に出てきた。でも、そんな大きくないね。
The horseshoe crabs have shrunk to around 1 meter in length. There aren't so many of them either. This is probably the minimum amount of the ecosystem will allow. It's almost like it took what happened before as like a suggestion, it's like reprinting things. Is it recreating the events that happened previously?
そう。
Oh,
そういうこと。
the life energy itself adapts. And so it sees itself as a running simulation where it tries to go through life, and then when life regresses for whatever reason, it kind of rebuilds but adapts the rebuilding to be similar to what was originally created, but adapted to try and make it more functional. Why?
これは万能の力に情報が蓄積される性質がなければ起こらない現象よ。蓄積された情報を参照してそれを再現しようとしているのね。
Yeah.
小太郎は知らない？人が生まれてから得た知識が子孫に伝えられるという話。
Genetic instinct. Right. Acquired characteristics. Knowledge and skills acquired by an organism during its lifetime can't be passed on to its offspring via genes. For example, the children of parents who speak 2 languages aren't born bilingual. These traits are what we call acquired characteristics. However, superhumans are said to result from the inheritance of such acquired traits. Superhumans manifest their unique powers by interpreting our collective memory as a species.
蓄積情報を参照して進化をいくらか早めているんじゃないかしら。
That might explain why it's taking so much energy too. But why is it progressing along the same evolutionary path?
手っ取り早いから。
That can't be it.
案外、しずるの意見が正解かも。
Path of least resistance, all the connections in the soup of like life essence, you could say, like the primordial soup. It already has all the correct amino acids and protein making factors and ATP essentially to be able to create life in a very similar way. That's why all life eventually evolves to crabs. How about this, Akane? By the way, that's not a throwaway thing. It's like evolution seems to have decided that the crab is the ultimate life form because throughout various like mass extinction events in the history, crab-like creatures, like lobster-looking, shrimp-like looking, crab-like looking creatures have always returned. They've been wiped out, and then life would re-evolve them back into existence. It's like, that's a genuine thing. How about this, Akane? I scribbled down my idea and show it to her.
おバカの小太郎がこんな複雑な考えをするだなんて。
I'll have you know this form of me has ascended to near godhood.
これは
What do you think?
思考形態そのものは短絡的で安心したわ。小太郎はこうでなくちゃ。
Ugh. Hitting me right where it hurts.
どういうアイデアです？
獲得形質に警告メッセージを記録して再び進化した人類に警告を与え頑張ってもらう。
本当に短絡的だな。
I feel like that's just gonna birth a religion. Shut it.
誰がそれを読むの？
Someone?
がっかりアイデア。
I guess it wouldn't work, huh?
優位のメッセージを残すこと自体難しいと思うし、できたとしても全てを理解させることは難しそうね。
So what do? You leave it as like a language? Like what? Do you assume they're gonna learn your language? That's silly. You leave it as impressions, visions, maybe? Again, I think that's just gonna make a religious leader. But I think a human on the level of Kashima Sakura would be capable of finding it.
握りつぶすんじゃないです？
Dang it! She's right. I really thought this was gonna work. I look back at the theory. As Akane said, my plan is too difficult to implement. The accumulated memories are limited to the history of evolution. Recording current feelings and knowledge and passing them on to future generations is just not possible.
鍵を利用ばかりしてきたから少しでも力になれればと思って出しゃばってしまったけど力になれなくて悪かったわね。
Well, it's not over yet. With a weak smile, Akane disappears into the gloomy forest. Huh. My eyes practically bore holes into the copy of the theory as I stare intently at it, but no further ideas come to mind. Ferns have sprouted from my kneecaps. Whoa. The drool that slid through the corner of my mouth has formed into stalactites. Seems I stagnated for what would amount to several billion years in subjective time. I snap off the stalactites and pull my ferns out of my by the roots. I look around. Kagari's standing upright. Something seems different about her. Has she changed? I walk over to her. At her feet, the theory has undergone a massive transformation. What the? Resting my hands flat against the ground, I examine it closely. The branches of the great tree have become faint and blurry. They're no longer clearly defined. On the branches I've seen so far, the possibility of life surviving has always been 0. But now, I can't even tell that much. Suppose there's no hope in not knowing. It's a mathematically understandable perspective. As long as you're unable to conclude that something is impossible, the faint hope remains, statistically speaking. Having said that, whether or not the result is survival is another matter. We weren't simply playing with numbers atop a table. We were searching for a route to the future. Kagari stares blankly upward, her expression empty and exhausted. No matter how many branches she sends out, she couldn't find what she was looking for. That's what she seems to be saying. It's clear to me that she's given up. I see. I have no right to rebuke her for it. This is Kagari's decision, and I respect that. All I have to do is accept it. You worked really hard, Kagari. I run my fingertips through her frayed hair. She raises her eyes and tilts her head at me. She pushes the tip of her nose against my hand, more like a scared little kitten than an exhausted girl. Aww, that's really cute. It's okay, no one's gonna blame you. It might be over for us, but life will blossom again somewhere else. Okay? Simply leaving us with hope means you've done a great job. No matter how unlikely the possibility is. Patting her on the back, I give her words of consolation. It takes hundreds, thousands of years. After Kagari's calmed down, I turn my gaze back to the theory. I want to burn the image of it in my brain. Mind if I write something for posterity? I just want to scribble down a few words. It won't affect the theory in any way. It's a thing humans do. Sometimes we like to leave our names behind on the moon we'll never return to. Like this. I take out my copy of the theory and add a few words to it. Someday we'll meet again, Tennouji Kotarou. Yeah, I know it's kind of lame. I know human language is pretty crude. Okay, I'm gonna try to convert it. Someday we'll meet again. Yeah, turning it into just data. Lastly, compress the data. That should do it. When the theory is put into practice, my comment will be lost somewhere unreachable by human intellect. No one will read it, but that's okay. It shouldn't affect the theory, should it? I certainly don't want to mess up Kagari's hard work. Despite my best efforts, there's still a chance it might cause some kind of cascading bug. Is this okay? You'd stop me if it weren't, right? Laying the copy atop the original, I transfer it over. Then I comment out loud that it won't affect the theory. Huh, feels like I did something momentous. Like I overwrote God's plan. Oh my gosh, we broke the game. We broke it. Everyone, panic! Kagari's eyes widen as she got down on her hands and knees. She stares intently at my note. Should I not have done that? She looks at it with a fixed intensity until she abruptly reaches out and runs her fingertips over my name. For a moment, I think she's deleting it, but that doesn't seem to be the case. In a flash, the data expands. 20 trillion times. Is she creating a new, smaller theory using my name as a starting point? What are you doing? Why now? Kagari's fingernails split as she works. Her hair loses its shine and its phosphorescent emanating from her body dims. Matter transitions. So from his little note, she transplants the new program she's made into the Great Tree. I have no idea what she's doing. All I can do is watch in silence, mouth agape. The program runs and the Great Tree begins to change. Oh my gosh. The haze obscuring the canopy clears and the branches are laid bare once again. Every branch is withered. They're dull and almost lifeless. Suddenly, a light shines from one branch among them and starts to grow. Oh my gosh. What did we just do? We sent a little subconscious message. I stand rooted on the spot. Is that the glowing part that we saw, way at the beginning? The branch continues to extend indeterminably. It grows to an incredible rate. Oh my gosh, look at that. It's growing into an infinite, not truly infinite, but pretty close. All at once, the branch widens until it's almost like a brand new trunk. No, more than that. It becomes tens of times thicker than the original tree it sprouted from. No, even more than that. It's no longer a tree. This is the raging rapids of life, strong and wide as the ocean currents. The trunk continues to proliferate without end, extending on into the future with even Kagari's theory can't account for before disappearing into the mist of uncertainty. What the fetch did it do? It's like maybe the subconscious message idea actually worked. Well, you did it! You really did it! As I laugh in wild disbelief, Kagari turns to face me. She's crying. I can tell they aren't tears of joy. Kagari? There's pity in her eyes. The four corners of her theory rise up and furl over her, enveloping her like giant petals. Just before the gap at the top closes up, her ribbons burst forth. They twine around and around again. Kagari and the theory merge, forming a bud. Oh. Can't stop thinking about the look on her face. Why? This was the moment when all that time spent up till now finally became worth it. That's when I sensed a presence. Uh-oh. At the same time, my cell phone rings. Uh-oh, that seems weird. Really? Now? I know what the calls will be about. I have to answer it.
Oi, 襲撃だ! すげえ数だぞ! どうなってんだこりゃ!
Crap.
数えきれないわ。
Oh no. We opened up so many possibilities. We might have a future. But now, remember what I said? How when you have infinity, technically... Oh gosh. We probably have hundreds, if not thousands of Sakura now who are attacking at the same time. Oh no. Okay, we're gonna end here because this is gonna get insane really quickly. But what the fetch just happened? Okay, my best guess so far is that he implanted essentially a message that would not be comprehensible, but perhaps was on a subconscious level comprehensible in our genetic memory. And what it is it's hope. Because the message was, I will see you again, or we will see each other again. Let's go back to it real quick, just to make sure I put it right. Let's see. Someday we'll meet again, Tennouji Kotarou. Someday we'll meet again. And maybe that gave humanity hope. That when things got dark, or when things got twisted, there was hope. Hope was still there. Someday we'll meet again. And that somehow gave us what we needed to pursue far more possibility spaces, which is interesting, this idea that one little slight change from a human added to the data was what made a big difference. I wonder if he'd said something different, the change would have been better or worse. But regardless of that, now we're gonna have to suffer the consequences of that decision, whatever that ends up being. So yeah, looking great so far. Alright, I think we are gonna end here. We're gonna see if we can survive whatever this is gonna be. Too many to even count. It's like, crap. That's not good. But whatever happens, we'll have to just do the best we can. But maybe this is technically the end of us, because whatever happened just now, Kagari seemed to move on. Or her mission was over, or something. Something changed. So, what is it? We'll have to see. But next time, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for joining me on the channel. Hopefully we'll be able to dive right into the full spectrum next time and see what magic we ended up bringing about during this amazing plot twist. So, until next video, watching me, hope you see me next. I'll see you there.